in Nottingham, it's realistic to like leave in about 40% of the capital that you've put into the deal. Okay. I think that's quite easily achievable. To try and pull it all out, it's getting harder and harder, from my experience anyway. But I've just done 2 of my last deals. One of them, I put in about 100k, and I had to leave in about 40k, but the monthly profit was like 1,600 per month.
I'm saying comparatively to what we're getting in London, those kind of yields, that amount in, we might be heading to Nottingham soon. So there might be some. You have to speak to the videographers, seeing if they're going to travel that far. But this is another episode of the Property by Kazy podcast. Today I'm joined by Luigi from LN Capital. He's travelled all the way down from Nottingham, and he's also guaranteed me a deal in Notts. So if you don't see me in Notts very soon, you know that he's let me down. So this is where you see the guarantee. So go let him know. Go find Kazy that deal. But it's great to have you on. You know, every week we speak to a different guest about their experience in property. But before we find out about you, before we get into all those gems and everything that you've done, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you like what you see, make sure you like this content. And if you've got any questions for myself or Luigi, ask in the comment section, so we know what you want to see, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, we love comments. We love comments on YouTube.
Yeah, no, comments
I don't get enough comments on my stuff. Like, I get some views, but I hardly see any comments, so I don't know what to make more.
Yeah, no, so that's it. Comments let us know what you want to see. Also, a lot of the time, in a conversation, we're talking about the little bits that we find interesting, or then maybe as property people, we talk about some stuff as this is obvious, but there's no such thing as a stupid question. So sometimes, you know, we're skimming between acronyms, whether it's BRRR or HMO or like, you know, something and you're thinking, oh, I don't know what that is. Like, ask, because even if we don't answer, somebody else will, because everybody in this space is here because they want to enhance their knowledge on property, and they've got something they want to know or something that you can bring to the table. So I definitely think use those comments.
Yeah.
But so before we get into all of that, go and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I know we spoke on Instagram Live before.
Yeah.
So basically myself, Luigi Newton, 26 years old. Sorry, I'm 27. Just turned 27.
We always forget, innit? You get a little bit, oh, listen, I've been claiming I'm 20 something for ages.
Yeah, so 27, and I'm from Nottingham. I've got a portfolio, got 6 properties, I think 6 or 7, and I'm buying like 5 more now, but I'm selling a couple as well. So it's all happening now, and I do lots of JVs, joint ventures, but I also have my own deals that I do just for my own money. So I'm just kind of do both, the JV side and then just my side.
So I think that's interesting, because a lot of people don't even necessarily know, like what you just said, what JV stands for as a joint venture, but like, you know, the different ways in which you can structure a JV. So do you want to speak to people about like how in property, potentially, if you want to broker a deal where, and why you, not only just how you structure a JV, but why you would do a JV?
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing. Why would I do it? Is basically my capital will only take me so far, because
it's a finite resource. If we had unlimited money, you probably wouldn't do JVs. But because money is a limit, you want to be as efficient
100%.
With that capital as possible.
100%. So like, I started out with only £6,000. So obviously I've grown that a lot more now. However, it only still takes me so far.
Of course.
So that's why I do the JVs, and how I structure the JVs is my partner will fund 100% of the deal. I'll find the deal, I'll manage the deal, I'll manage the full refurb, and then I'll manage the property managers on the back end. So make sure it's let out correctly, make sure the property managers are doing their job, and make sure I'm staying on top of them on a day-to-day basis. So I'm basically doing all the legwork, and the partner will just fund it.
Okay. So for somebody who looked at that and said, but why would they do that? Like, what is the value? Like, what's the value that you're providing to that JV partner? Because they're putting all the money in.
Yeah.
So where would you say your value comes in, or any, not just you, but any, you know, investor that's proposed that type of structure?
Well, I think if someone's got, you know, 200k in London, it will only take them so far. But if they do something with me in Nottingham, they can still potentially get a lot better return than if they're trying to do it themselves in London. So obviously for someone like you though, 200k can go a lot further.
But I think potentially the other side for me is like, when I think about somebody like you and the conversations that we had off camera, it's like, it's not just the fact that, okay, great, you've got 200k.
Yeah.
But do they have your expertise to deliver the deal?
Yeah.
And even if they've got the expertise to deliver the deal, do they have your local knowledge to be able to find the deals, your relationships with the agents to be able to get those deals ahead of everybody else?
Yeah.
And do they have your build team that can do it at, you know, a good rate? So I think it's why they'd work with you, or why, you know, why somebody's maybe not myself that's in property, but somebody who's got money that's ready to invest would look to do a JV where it's 50-50, but they fund 100%, because already, to be fair, any investor, if I can invest my money and I can make the same amount of money with doing none of the legwork, it's kind of a win-win for both parties, right?
Yeah, because most of the deals that I'm doing, I'm pulling out most of the initial investment. So, for example, one of them I've just recently done, the JV partner invested about 115 grand, and we managed to get it all back out. The net profit per month's like £2,200 per month. So he lives in London, he's a musician in London, but he wanted to stay anonymous. So yeah, done that with him. And so if someone's living in London, he was gonna buy a single let for 60k cash, but he decided, you know, to speak to me, and we got the ball rolling really, and just did a deal with him, and he's got a much better return than that cash single let.
That's it, because now, like you said, he owns an asset that's going to be increasing in value. Yeah. He has a monthly income. Yeah. He doesn't deal with the management and the other side of things, and he's also got his money back. Yeah. If you bought that cash property, you don't get your money back. So he's got his money back. He's still making money. So like you said, it's like a triple threat win-win. So there's a lot of good opportunities and a lot of good options. And I think the structure of the JVs, I'm somebody that I was like the other way to a little bit. I was like, for a long time, I was kind of like in my own little bubble. Like, I don't want to work with anyone. I don't want to. I just want to do this. I want to do my own money and X, Y, or Z. But then you have to start thinking, it's if you don't start to leverage, because I don't have unlimited money. None of us are fortunate enough. We're working towards that. Yeah. But I have that unlimited money, so you're only stagnating your own growth. So definitely this year, I've started, and I will be doing more of that same structured JVs where I'm like, look, for a long time, I've taken years, like coming up to a decade, to hone my craft, to get this area of expertise where I know that I can find deals, I can project manage, I can deliver everything, very confident in, getting good returns. And what's the point in me just doing that and leaving it on the shelf, knowing there's a deal there? I'm better off finding somebody, it could be yourself, could be anybody else out there, to work with and say, look, you fund this amount, we'll do it together effectively, and you set up an SPV to work with that individual, and it can be used for properties that you want to keep, it can be used for properties you want to flip, but there are a lot of really good structure options.
And I would say, if you are going to do the JV model, one thing what's helped me so much is GetGround, that third party. I think you've probably seen them online and stuff, but it's like a one-stop shop. So they will do the whole structuring of the SPV. Okay. And it's like £24 a month. Oh, nice. And it's £22 a month, but like with VAT, it's like 26.
They did speak. They messaged me actually. They messaged me, and I was supposed to get back to them.
I was telling them about you because you're doing like podcasts and stuff. So I told them about you.
Okay.
I was with them this morning.
Shout out GetGround, boy. Come sponsor this. But no, I think I actually will, because it's something obviously that I did a few ages ago. Like I raised private equity ages ago. It was all very different. Yeah. But it's a different world, different space you're operating in now. So I think I might reach out to them.
And I think it's a win-win with the JV stuff, because as well, finding the deals is obviously the hardest bit. I think it's one of the hardest bits to do. So for me, finding the deal and then managing the whole process so it's completely smooth for the partner, that's another massive aspect which I think I bring to the table. So I think that and the return, just it's a win-win.
That makes sense. So you've been focusing primarily, you said you got like 5 more acquisitions potentially pending, you got some stock that you're looking to dispose of. Obviously, portfolios always go up and down. What type of projects are you going to be focusing on going forward?
Well, the one I'm most excited about is the 8-bed HMO that I'm doing. Oh, nice. Because for me, I've generally been doing I started doing 4 beds, then 5 beds, then 6 beds. So now doing this 8-bed one.
Yeah, it's progression.
I've got full planning approval on it. Construction drawings done, floor plans done. I'm just meeting with the build team tomorrow.
Okay, so when you hoping to break ground on that one?
I'm looking to start it next week.
Nice.
I'm just finalising the quotes and stuff.
Nice. And have you got a turnaround time, or got a target you want to have in mind? We want to have it complete.
Thinking about 3-4 months.
3-4 months, yeah.
But to answer your question, I'm trying to focus on more that type of project. like large 6 beds to 10 bed, 6 to 10 bed HMOs. I just love that space there.
Would you say, and so I got a few questions for you in regards to the 6 to 10 bed HMOs, and also questions around managing in your own projects. So in Nottingham, would you say there's a demand for those larger HMOs?
Yes.
And why? And then also, how is it that when you're creating these larger homes and these larger spaces, do you ensure that you still create a good standard of living? Like, what is it that you implement when you're working with your architect to design them?
Well, I think there's a massive demand in Nottingham for housing in general. So I think my tenant type is usually working professionals. I've got some student ones, but working professionals, but also DSS tenants. So if I can make, you know, a high level property, just a nice finish, not like high level, but just a nice looking property, and give it to DSS tenants, we can still get, you know, £480 per room. So it's a good return. I'm happy with the return.
Nice. And do you generally, for these larger properties, you going for the one kitchen? Is it 2 kitchens? You going en suites? What sort of layouts are you going for?
So we're going open plan kitchens.
Nice.
With say 3 or 4 communal bathrooms for like an 8 bed.
Yeah.
For a 6 bed, I'd say we do 2 communal bathrooms and an open plan kitchen. Okay. Kitchen, living room.
Pause. Stop. Sorry. Quick intermission. As we have no sponsors, you're the sponsor right now, so subscribe to this video if you're enjoying it. Also, if you haven't already, like, comment, all that good stuff. Now, back to the video. Now that you're moving forward and you're going to be doing, like you said, potentially like 5 acquisitions, more properties, more projects. Yeah. How do you think you're going to find managing multiple builds at once?
So I've had to increase my construction side, so I'm having to take on more build teams that I'm working with. Luckily, I've got previous relationships with quite a few different builders, so I'm kind of just in the process of getting different teams together as I'm scaling up. But I think it's a good growing pain to have. So, but if I was to say my weak point in the past has been my construction. Yeah. Having things not done to the particularly nice finish like what you've got, where everything is perfect. I've slacked on that in the past. So for me, that's kind of what I'm focusing on now.
Do you know what I think that is? Like, and for me, maybe this is some little advice for you, but it's because, especially when you're running to tight margins and you've got a budget and you get to the point where, you know, you're 90% there, but you've still got none of your money back. You're still not getting paid. The builders still want money. Like, maybe your bridging lender's about to say, like, you know, you're about to reach the 6 months or the 12 months to go over it, and you're just thinking, I just want to get it done. Yeah. But I think you've got to try and always leave yourself enough of a buffer in time that you're not at the end of your tether, that you can still take the time to really keep that business ethos of the quality control all the way down to the end, because it's so easy that when, like, towards the end of a project, you start to let stuff go. Like, you might see like some slapdash paint around the light switch where you can just see the brush strokes. You're thinking, if I call my painter back in, I can't get the cleaners in, now I can't, and it's all this delays. But yeah, what other stuff from what tips and advice would you give somebody that's maybe doing their first project, and maybe some mistakes or some stuff that you would say going forward that you'd advise on project management and dealing with contractors? Yeah, so I would say for someone doing their first project, I would say do something simple, do something which needs a light refurbishment. So maybe, you know, not much layout changes, just very light refurb. So new flooring, new kitchen, new bathroom, nothing crazy. So I'd say do that, and I'd probably say go for a single let, maybe a serviced accommodation, but you just need to be careful on what mortgage you're on. Because I know, funny, because literally, like, so last episode we had Sam Norris,
and this came up
from Grand Union Finance.
Oh, okay.
I'll be honest with you, I only did rent the serviced accommodation, so didn't deal with so much with the mortgage side of things. And I'll be honest, I was rubbish at serviced accommodation. But he was saying it's a weird space, because even lenders don't know how to classify it. He was saying some of them call it short let, some of them call it serviced accommodation, some of them call it holiday let. But it's like none of them have started to say we're going to be the go-to lender that takes the risk on it. So you're in this weird space where none of the big lenders want to lend to you. Yeah. And so, I
think I tried to get one before with someone called Paragon or something. They were speaking about they had a product for Paragon, it, but I think it was the rate or something. They classed it as no, this is not a serviced accommodation. And it was like an apartment that was going to let out. Me and this woman called Charmaine, C Property Life.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen her on Instagram.
I think I've come across it, yeah.
We was going to buy this apartment like 4 years ago and do it as an SA.
Yeah.
But it's a weird space. Hopefully Sam gave us a bit more gems on that.
He was saying hopefully there is going to be a fix, but he said the thing with mortgage lenders and lending in general is it's really institutional and archaic. And because you've got these big players, your Barclays, your Halifaxes, you know, that they do lending. It's like, if me and you have been doing all these deals, and one of these young guys comes and says, oh no, try and do it like this. If we've been doing it for years, it's like, well, if Luigi's not doing it, and Anthony's not doing it, and Alfred's not doing it, I'm not going to be the one to be the guinea pig. And that's kind of how they look at it. But I think there's also, wherever there's like these weaknesses, there's that SWOT analysis, there's an opportunity for maybe a lender, and maybe somebody small to step up and be like, right, we're going to become the go-to lender for SAs. Because if they're the ones that make it really easy to do serviced accommodation, it's a lot more likely that, you know, they're going to get championed on the social media. People are going to hear about them. They're going to become the go-to, and it's actually going to build not only their serviced accommodation arm of their lending, but also their lending as a whole. Because
I hope they do. Because I don't want to like get any serviced accommodation houses or units with in the back of my mind thinking, am I in breach of my mortgage condition if I'm doing it? Am I doing it right? Because that's the other thing. I feel like a lot of, you know, they don't know if you're in breach of your mortgage condition. They're kind of like, well, if you don't tell us, we don't mind. But you're like, look, I don't want to operate like that, especially when you're not just an accidental landlord. You're actually doing it as a business. You want to be building relationships with lenders that are positive and not worry about any sort of non-compliance. I mean, I've got a serviced accommodation property and it's doing well, but it's always that grey area which I don't like. I try and stay out of the grey area. I want to know, you know, everything is correct and proper. Because I'm trying to scale up. I don't want any like, you know,
you don't want any like any little bits wrong that could potentially, because it's that same idea of if you see like a bit of a crack in your foundation, it might just be a little crack. But then when you come to build and go bigger and bigger, that crack could potentially be what can tumble down your whole like, you know, your whole empire or impact it. So I think it is really important as a general lesson that, you know, compliance in property, whether it's the private rental sector, whether it's development, whether it's if you're doing new builds and you're making sure you got your warranties in place, there's so much stuff and areas that you need to be compliant with. 100%. Understanding that is super important.
Definitely.
That's it. And for people, have you got any tips of what for people that want to find out more about compliance? Because you know, there's not necessarily that go-to educator, like, you know, in terms of there's not necessarily the course you can do at college to be like, oh do this and you'll learn all about property compliance and then go ahead. So I just think lots of emails to the council with no address. So how I do it is, if I'm looking to purchase a HMO and I want to know, right, do we need to put a fire panel here? There's lots of grey areas I'm finding when it comes to like, bro, you know what I mean? See HMOs, and even like sometimes HMOs are not even council specific. It's like actually like the person within the council has a specific preference. Like I remember, like you said, that exact example. Fire panels. Guy came out to do like you could pay to do an independent review where they come out and say what stuff would need. I think it was like £150 you had to pay. And we're like, telling him, we're going to get, you know, grade 2 fire panel. He's like, oh no, I just get an interlink smoke alarm system. I hate the fire panels. I need him on my one. Because you know the fire panels, the money in the fire panels. But even those, because if you don't want to rewire, if you're not doing a full refurb and you use those radio bases, it still quickly adds up as well, because a radio base is like £60 plus the actual panel plus everything. You still end up spending for a HMO and labour the better part of £1,000, probably a bit less. But I guess a panel system is probably what, 3,000-ish? For me, I'm looking about, with a fire panel for like the 8-bed one, it's coming to about £8,000 for like the fire panel and all full rewire and all the electrics. And then you're gonna need your brake glass at certain points and all that stuff. But then I just paid like £5,000 for a 5-bed HMO that I'm doing, and that's with no fire panel. For the full rewire, full electric, spotlights, LED mirrors, all that. Quite a nice HMO. Do you tend, because this I guess is another thing, a lot of people question like, how do you cost refurbs? So like with your electrics as a starting point, do you like go to them and say, look, do they charge you per point? Like this is how many points we're having? Or do you just tend to say, look, this is what I want to do, here are my plans, how much is it going to cost me?
So in my head, I know roughly what I'm trying to spend for the whole project. I know a rough breakdown of like for the electric should cost, as we said, if it's a 5-bed, we're looking about $5,000 with no panel. But say if we need a panel, it's going to be about $8,000.
And how did you get to the point where you knew that sort of thing?
I think it's just experience of doing different projects. So I know the rough prices, but I'll have like 3 teams of electricians, and then I'll literally go to my go-to guy, and if he's just messing about, which sometimes they do, then I'll go to the other 2 teams.
So you have options, so you can also benchmark them against other, because by the time if you've got 1 and 2, and one comes up as 5 and one comes up as 8, and that we don't really know which one is right, because the $5,000 could be way too low and end up having issues with them, so you can kind of get a middle ground. And I remember speaking to, have you come across Hannah and, I forget the gentleman's name, from Dugar Property?
Yeah. You got property, rings a bell,
Yeah, they operate in South Wales, and they were saying, because they were doing loads of projects and they were doing sourcing, so ended up sourcing and costing projects, and they were doing like literally 100 projects, and they ended up basically creating like a mini like costing guide, because they're operating in South Wales where they had loads of similar houses. You know, they got loads of houses that are literally
just the
3-bed terrace. They're basically the same house. So that they got to the point where it was like, well, if it's back to brick, it's this amount. If it's not back to brick, it's this amount, and a contingency just in case you've got to change your joists and X, Y, or Z.
Okay, so they had a set costing, what they
almost like a set costing to be like, look, it's default, which I think is really good when you're looking at trying to appraise loads of deals. Because if you're going to auction, there's like loads of different houses, and you're trying to work out how much you're going to have to spend. The idea of being able to very quickly work out the refurbs, I mean, you can quickly say, that deal's no good, it's too much. By the time I spend my refurb, my stamp duty, my finance cost, it's going to be way too much money. You know, it's already at the guide price, it doesn't make any sense, I'm not going to work it out. So I think it is good.
You know, like with your projects, do you always you don't put people on a day rate, or do you sometimes put people on a day rate? Is there a time and a place for a day rate?
There is a time and a place for a day rate, but it depends. Like, I think if you're going to be a full-time project manager, so you're going to be on site pretty much like 5-6 days a week, there for 90% of the day, then because you're always there and the people can see you working, you can potentially get more out of your team on a daily basis with them being on that day rate. However, if you're not going to be there, human nature is to work to efficiency. If you're getting paid on a day rate, like, you don't really have an incentive to work any quicker. So the kind of like trades that I'll potentially have on a day rate is sometimes if I'm, for example, if it's not a team and I've got multi-trades and I'm project managing, I might have a labourer on a day rate that's job is just wholly to just basically keep the site tidy, like deliveries, etc., because I need them on an ad hoc basis.
Okay.
And they're really good because you know sometimes, particularly when you've got multiple trades, the electrician's cutting and they're leaving offcuts. The chippies like leaving wood chippings. This is doing, everybody's leaving something. But everybody else is saying it was somebody else that did it. And then, but they're all skilled tradesmen. So although you want to say in an ideal world, no, you've all got to tidy up after yourself. You've all got to do this. You've all got to do that. By the time you actually do that, you're doing it on principle and the pride of saying, look, you've got to do it, rather than say, you know what, getting a day rate labourer in for a lot cheaper might be just a more efficient way to run your project. And sometimes I think that's something that we develop as a skill set as a manager, that working when to push back and maybe when spending money will save you money. I've got some questions for you for after this, for when we do it on my channel. Don't worry, keep it in mind. So obviously all the links to Luigi's channel, to LN Capital, are going to be in the notes below, so you're going to be able to find him. You're going to be able to see myself, like, I'm not looking the best today, but I'll be shining with the lighting that we've got from South Point Media, our A1 videographers who always look after us. We have to make sure that everybody that we're working with, we always big up. And I think that's something that I'm like a super champion of in property. One of the reasons why I started doing this podcast was because, like, joining Instagram, there were loads of pages that I took loads of inspiration from. And the fact that my page grew, I'm just like, I'm really thankful that it did grow, but I'm like, I just want to shed light on all of the pages of the people that I like, that I see what they're doing, and it can be somebody that's like way bigger, that's doing massive things, somebody that's just starting up, or somebody that's maybe in the same place. I don't see it as competition. I just see us all as an opportunity that we can work and learn together and grow in this space and change the landscape of what does a property developer look like.
Yeah, 100%. I'd agree, and I think it's a nice community on Instagram and on YouTube of developers, big, small developers. Everyone's doing their own niche. Everyone's got their own thing, and we've got lots of similarities as well.
There's similarities there, and it's like you mentioned, for example, Moise.
Yeah.
And it's like we both operate in Southeast London.
Yeah.
We both buy like the same type of houses. But I would never think, I'm not gonna shout out Moise and be like, yeah, he's doing big things, because it doesn't matter how many people. There's so much money to be made, and so much business to be done, and so much properties to buy. Like, have you ever just taken go up into the go up in the Shard, go and just look over London, take a drone tour of London and see there's every street, there's opportunities. Everywhere you see a garage at the end of the house, everywhere you see scaffolding going up or some new hoarding going up, that's a deal you've missed. But then it's also to show you that there's deals to be had on that street.
Because a completely different note, what do you think about Dubai? Would you ever buy in Dubai? Because obviously I just came back from there yesterday.
So I've got a place, funny enough, in Dubai. But it's just like a studio flat that I had for ages ago. And it was like a random, the property deal went wrong, and it was just like that kind of repayment for it.
Can you give us more of the story on that one? Is it more like you don't really want to share?
Yes, it's not my story to tell kind of thing, but it's my thing with Dubai is so if we to take London as an example, central London, your zone 1 is the nucleus. And it's ridiculously expensive. It's never going to get cheaper. There's never going to be a point in time where people don't want to live in the centre of London. Yeah. And then you go out, and you go out, and you go out, and it's just getting slightly cheaper. But that ripple effect of the day you can't afford to live in, we'll take it just because the zones are easy to understand. Zone 2, you go to zone 3. The day you can't afford to go to zone 4, you go to zone 5. And people do that. And so it's getting more and more expensive as a ripple effect. Because land is so finite in London and there's so much desire to be here. The issue almost with Dubai is because it's a nucleus surrounded by a desert, there is a new go-to happening area every other day. So you have to really understand the market in Dubai. For example, I've been going to Dubai since 2008. Okay. Since they built the Atlantis. Oh, mad. So I've been in Dubai from when the place to be in Dubai was Deira. Deira City was the spot.
See, I don't even know Deira.
Deira is where the gold souk is. It's like the old town. You wouldn't go to Deira unless you're going to buy gold.
Okay.
So.
Oh yeah. I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Place
So that was the place. The souk. That was the spot to be in Dubai. It's a completely different kind of place.
What would you say is now the Palm, JBR?
So for a long time it was Marina. Marina was the go-to place. Marina, if you're an expat, a lot of the expats now live in JVC, which is where the other 5 is. Okay. The circular 5.
I don't know. I've just went to the 5 with the nice shaped one.
You went to the one on the Palm.
Yeah, the Palm.
Yeah, so there's another 5, and that's where JVC is, and that's where a lot of the expats live, because it's kind of affordable. It's up and coming. It's about to be another big area, another kind of Marina-esque feel. But there was loads of areas that were meant to be the big area, stuff like Discovery Gardens, this out in Ibn Battuta, and they're just not really, and that's potentially risk and rewards. If I can get the same level of return I can in the UK with a much lower level of risk, you tell me as an investor what would incentivize me to buy in Dubai apart from the lifestyle. Yeah,
because for me, I'm thinking, say the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. If I can get an apartment around there for 250k or 300k, but it's nice, and I can rent it on Airbnb and Booking.com, for me, that's good.
So there are
because I know what people will pay.
Caveats to the requirements of what you have to do to be able to rent. You have to get a license. The expense of getting a license is that same thing to consider in regards to what your service charge would be and how much they eat into your income. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good business, and it's not viable, but again, you've got to think of what you can do with that money, because also in Dubai, you've got to put down a lot more money. You've also got to pay it off a lot quicker. So there's a lot of things to consider. I'm not saying it's a bad investment opportunity, but then also when we look at areas like Marina, Marina was seen as the go-to area in Dubai, the hotspot of where to live. rents have fallen year on year for like the last 4 years in the marina. I know people that were paying, 80,000 dirhams for a 1-bedroom flat there, which is the equivalent of...
Is that per year?
Yeah, which is the equivalent of around 18,000 pounds for the year. That they now have a 2-bed in the same building, double the size, and they're paying 54,000.
Yeah, that's weird.
And it's dropped. So like, but in London, would you ever hear that story?
No.
That you could be renting an apartment in London, and then 3 years later, you're paying 30% less for an apartment double the size.
Yeah, it's something to think about. And I think for me, I'm just toying with the idea.
No, definitely. Listen, see, go in there and the lifestyle and experience and the weather and, everything. Yeah. Like, there has been times where I'll be like, it'd be lovely to have an apartment here that I can come and stay in. It's kind of making me money and X, Y, and Z. But then the other side of it is, like, also, if it's not going to be like somewhere you're going to live and work, then why not just do exactly that and just you rent the apartment for the limited time, and then you can rent any apartment anywhere in the city. Yeah,
that's the thing. But it's just like, is the capital appreciation going to be really good in Dubai over the next 10 years compared to UK?
And I don't think, like, I don't know enough about that to take the risk, whereas I feel like I know more about the UK market.
Yeah. I'd agree with you.
It's an interesting question. Yeah. We could tell that Luigi really enjoyed his time in Dubai because he's considering, saying, look, forget those 5 properties. I'm just going to buy somewhere in Dubai downtown, invest, relax, enjoy the weather, tan at the 5 palm.
Have you seen the address building?
Which one? The address?
The address next to the Burj, near the Burj.
Yeah, nice. That caught fire when I was out there once.
Really?
Yeah. It was closed for like... a year, I think, or half it was closed.
The Adam guy, he's doing rent to rent in the address.
Yeah, no.
So if he's paying like 1,600 or something per month, and then he's making money there.
Yeah, no, and it's good. Like that's the thing. That's what's amazing about business. Yeah. You can come up with a strategy, and if you make it work for you, it doesn't matter anybody else's opinion on it, because you know the numbers and you know what works for you. And it's fine for me to sit here and say I'm not sure, but there's also people that sit there and look at this and be like, do you know how much money I've made doing the opposite to what you said? Yeah. But I think one thing that you touched on that I'd go back to is when you were talking about you doing deals in Nottingham, and that there's a reason why you're not trying to do ground up at the same time as conversions and HMOs, and it's because you found a niche that works for you, and you know that. So your risk when a sourcer comes to you and says, well, Luigi, I've got this deal for you, it's 150,000, you can turn it into a 7-bed HMO, you straight away know whether you're going to make or lose money if you did that. Yeah,
I'd agree. I'd say for me, I've just, from quite early on, I dabbled with a few different strategies. I did a bit of rent to rent, didn't really go well for me. I did service accommodation, but I also did HMOs, and I love the HMO. So I always tried to say to myself, try and master HMOs between 5 to 8-bed HMOs, try and master that space. And that's what I'm currently doing. And I've really tried to be obsessed with it to the point where now I'm focusing on the construction mainly and thinking, right, that's my weak point. So Luigi, get better at this.
That's it. Just personal SWOT analysis, doing your own SWOT, looking in yourself and saying, where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses, how can I turn my weaknesses into a strength, and vice versa, and the same with the threats into opportunities. Do all of that, and it's a really good personal exercise to do on a regular basis. I think the other good thing about the property in the UK, and we touched on it, is that the community means that you spoke about being able to go and speak to Anthony Laville, for example, because he's doing some amazing things not too far afield from you. And how do you see yourself when you talk to people like that are doing these big 100 units, 200 units potential developments? Do you see that as something that you would want to do, or do you think you'd want to do more of what you're doing, or where do you see your trajectory?
100% would love to do bigger projects like that. But for me, I'm always just trying to, as I said, master what I'm doing now and focus on what I'm doing right now. And then keep in my head that later on, yes, you will be doing that, but just don't rush it in my head.
Take that skill set to go and do that when it's your time.
But I'm very blessed to have people like, for example, you mentioned Anthony Laville, people I can talk to. I'd say he's kind of a mentor in a way, someone I can bounce ideas off, and he'll give me advice on things he thinks I should do, stuff like that. So it's super helpful, and I think that was all through the YouTube community, and Instagram community, and just literally helping each other, you know, but providing value to each other. Because I'm sure you get lots of messages where people are like, they'll hit you with a question straight away. They might not follow you, you know, they might not even say, hi, I like your work or whatever. They just hit you with a question and it's
you know what? I'm not, like, I used to answer every DM.
Yeah.
Now, when a question starts with, like, just nothing, like they might not even have no picture, no nothing, and they just say, I've got 40k. Like, bearing in mind, they say, I've got 40k. Is that enough for a deposit in Swindon? And I'm thinking, you've never watched anything I've done. I don't even know where Swindon is.
Yeah,
like, so,
that's what I mean.
So I do think there's etiquette. But at the same time, if somebody hits me and they're like, yo, I love your stuff. Yeah. I was just thinking, I always tell people, like, do you know what? That I try to, honestly, like, if you hit me and ask me a question, I try to answer it where possible. Obviously, there's sometimes where, but I'm like, if you ask me a specific question, I can give you a specific answer. But this leads really on to my favorite question that I get asked all the time. I don't think it's a great question, but I think it's the most common question I get asked. I choose to ask my guests, every guest that I have on, the same question. And this is the question it frames as, I'm 17, I'm 18, 19, 20, however old I may be, and I really want to get into property. What can I do now to prepare myself to get into property?
Okay, so I'd say study like a crazy person. So study. Make sure you are obsessively studying property. When you finish your job, when you finish college, when you finish school, go home, jump on YouTube, watch Kazy's channel, watch my channel, watch Anthony Livio's channel, watch Justin Wilkins' channel, watch Saj Hussein's channel, and that's just a list of a few. But all of those channels there, watch them and study them, you know, just obsessively study those channels, right? And then I'd also say read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is more of a mindset book to make you view money in a different way and view using debt in a good way and stuff like that. Another good book that I recommend for people is Rob Moore, 44 Property Secrets by Rob Moore and Mark Comer.
I need to get, do you know what, like literally the last 3 people I've had on have mentioned Rob Moore.
Yeah.
I need to get Rob.
He's one of the old school guys, like progressive property.
I'm gonna find Rob.
Do you know who it is? Have you seen him online and stuff?
No.
Because he used to be like one of the leading like trainers in property.
Okay.
And like.
And he apparently changed, and he's got a new.
He's more doing podcasts now. Like he's got like a big podcast, one of the biggest ones. Like, so he's making millions off that.
Yeah.
And then his partner's now doing the property side.
Okay.
So Mark's doing the development side. But yeah, that book's really good. And then I'd say for people, save your money and try and increase your income rather than just focus on saving. So do side hustles, obviously all legal stuff, try and take a second or third job if you need to build up your money so then you have enough to buy something. And I'd say for people, my personal view is you should look to buy something rather than focus on rent to rent, because I think once you're on the ladder, it's easier to climb up. The hardest bit is getting on the ladder, so try and buy something. That's what I'd say to people.
Cool, it's great. Like, we always get different advice, and it's great to hear all these perspectives. We appreciate you coming on today. See, that is another episode wrapped up of the Property by Kazy podcast. Special guest each and every week, and next week is going to be exactly the same. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you like this video, make sure you comment, let us know what you thought, let us know if you've got any questions, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.